Ambassador, welcome and thank you for joining us. So, in our first part of our conversation, I'd like to ask why Kenya? How do we go from the local reality to global leadership? So, Ambassador Ali, Kenya is often described as Africa's climate leader. The country already gets about 90% of its electricity from renewables, mainly geothermal, wind, and hydro. And President Ruto has made climate action a defining part of his foreign policy. What's powerful in Kenya's story is that climate change isn't abstract. It's a lived reality with repeated droughts, devastating floods, livestock losses. Could you start by telling us what makes Kenya's climate journey unique, both in its leadership and in its vulnerability?
Well, thank you very much, and so glad and delighted to join all of you for this engagement. And I'm really happy that the good work that Kenya is doing over the years, especially my president, President William Ruto, is being recognized. But what makes our journey unique is that we anchor on our potential to both grow our economy and prosperity and address our concerns and vulnerabilities. As you rightly point out, climate change is a real and present danger for Kenya and indeed for most parts and all parts of the world. And along with other emerging and developing countries, we continue to call for fair and equitable climate finance. Yet we also recognize the potential we have to cost competitiveness, provide climate positive solutions at a global scale as an economic proposition. We have the young entrepreneurial population. Our average age is 19.8 years. The relevant natural assets and resources and the renewable energy offer an untapped potential to be both a green manufacturing and industrial powerhouse and to remove atmospheric carbon at a global relevant scale. We do not just look at how we grow without adding to our emissions, but we also look at how we grow by leaning into green solutions, from climate smart agriculture to green mobility, institutional development, clean cooking. I just finished a 2-day workshop bringing together a large ecosystem of people who are investing in institutional clean cooking, so green hydrogen and its derivatives, fertilizers for to boost our yields, e-methanol for shipping and aviation, and carbon removal. Kenya is offering bold climate leadership through initiatives like the Accelerated Partnership for Renewable Energy in Africa, in short called APRA, and the Africa Green Industrialization Initiative to power a new era of shared prosperity and sustainable growth across the continent. This platform additionally enables us to enhance energy access, reduce emissions, and create inclusive economic opportunities. By focusing on this notion of climate growth, we hope to offer the world a sustainable perspective of climate positive growth. We are also realistic. A strategic anchor on our economically viable potential is the only path with real Kenyan and African agency to design, fund, and execute our response to climate change on our terms, in particular in today's geopolitical reality that we all live in.
Ali, you mentioned the growth challenge. Today, Kenya's total electricity use is about 10 terawatt hours a year, which is roughly one third of what Microsoft or Google use globally, just one of those companies, and about 60 times less than the average person living in the US.
Mm.
As Kenya's economy and population grow, how do you plan to meet that rising demand while staying on track for the goal of having 100% renewables by 2030? What are the next frontiers? So you mentioned green hydrogen, but how about things like the potential for geothermal, solar and wind, battery storage, nuclear interconnections? Can you tell us more about that?
I think all those are possible options, and we are exploring all. To use an old metaphor, we must fire on all cylinders, and we will. We have unique geothermal potential and experiences. We are the sixth geothermal leader in the world. Our installed geothermal capacity ranks seventh in the world. Now it's actually ranked sixth and even exceeds that of Iceland. That allows us to cost competitively and quickly build out renewable baseload. We also have onshore wind with some of the world's highest and fastest capacity factors. Our Electrocana wind farm is the largest in Africa so far and has an average capacity factor of 55 to 60%, well above the global average, as you know, of 25 to 45%. And we have significant untapped potential to expand. We also benefit from our many sun hours. We are right in the tropics, and the equator passes right in the middle of Kenya, and very low seasonality, which means solar can deliver reliable year-round generation and much lower storage and needs than elsewhere. For comparison, the lowest capex standalone for BES configuration using only wind, solar, and battery storage to provide reliable 24/7 power could be as much smaller in our country than it would be, for example, in other countries, at about a third of a system needed to deliver the same output in industrial heartlands of Germany, just for comparison purposes, or around 35% less than, say, Spain, which also enjoys some more sunny than Germany. Crucially, this expansion will only happen when it makes real financial sense, which means it must power our economy. Painfully, retail energy demand to address energy poverty does not always make for a compelling business case, even if the development outcomes are undeniable. The difficult truth upholds the paradox of high energy poverty alongside high untapped renewable potential. That is really the tragedy and the paradox of the African continent and Kenya, including Kenya.
Mm.
Therefore, we must attract large scale industrial anchor demand to strengthen the business and investment case to build out renewable generation capacity. And we must plan that capacity is in always in ways that help address energy poverty and create opportunities for diverse and distributed new green economic activity. This also ties directly to our push for electric mobility and institutional clean cooking, as I said earlier, transitioning as catalytic enablers for low carbon growth. Given our demography and geography, a green, prosperous Kenya will combine grid, mini grid, off grid solutions, both connected and captive industrial deployments, and renewable energy with proper load balancing that require renewable baseloads such as geothermal as well as battery storage. The only way to achieve this quickly and sustainably and at a scale is by anchoring on solid economics, prioritizing activities where we can be regionally and globally cost competitive, and working hard both to remove the barriers holding that potential back and to realize it. And that is exactly what Kenya is prioritizing currently.
So you mentioned the need to anchor this green industrialization in economic activities. At the recent Africa Climate Summit, President Ruto spoke about green industrialization, that Africa shouldn't just export raw minerals, but build industries powered by clean energy. So, what does green industrialization mean in Kenya's context? Where do you see the most promising opportunities in manufacturing, critical minerals, agri tech, digital infrastructure that could turn clean power into jobs and exports?
To answer that question, green industrialization is not a Kenyan innovation, but for Kenya, as I believe it is for all of us and all of us in the world, green industrialization in Kenya's context will have several levers. Again, we must anchor on where we hold the greatest cost competitive potential. For instance, many African countries import large volumes of chemical fertilizer, organic fertilizer, and our smallholder farmers often face some of the highest prices globally for this essential input to their farms. To increase yields and avoid further land clearance, we must improve soil health and fertilization, therefore. However, relying solely on imported chemical fertilizer is both economically and financially unsustainable. So, what is the solution? Advancing green fertilizer production in Africa, in Kenya, alongside alternatives such as biochar blended organic fertilizer, which adds further value to biowaste and provide a durable carbon removal, enhances our agency, strengthens our trade balance, and improves food security. At the same time, the precursors of green chemical fertilizer production, and here I mean green ammonia and green hydrogen, have many other downstream applications, including the production of sustainable synthetic fuels for the aviation and maritime industries, where global demand is growing even as supply remains constrained. Combining export driven and local use cases can reinforce the resilience and viability of investment models while delivering immediate, diverse, and tangible local economic and development benefits. Kenya's geology and geothermal resources offer rare advantages for green industries that need steady 24/7 power and heat. While global discussions on green industry focus mostly on electrification, many industrial processes also rely on heat, and green hydrogen can provide the high heat needed for activities like mineral refining. Our geothermal fields are supporting advanced technologies like direct air capture and carbon storage. It's no surprise then that Kenya hosts Africa's first DAC, direct air capture machine developer. Octavia is called the company, Octavia Carbon, and Great Carbon Valley, pioneering green industrial hubs offering ready opportunities in carbon capture, storage, and green digital infrastructure. Our nation, Kenya, is also a hub for electric mobility, innovation, and manufacturing, attracting investors, talents, and technology from across the world. Currently, we have over 40 companies in different businesses in the sectors from manufacturing to assembling and charging infrastructure. This sector has so far attracted approximately US dollars 400 million that have flowed into Kenya's electric mobility sector since 2021 from global partners. And I invite all of you to consider investing in Kenya in these sectors and other related sectors.
So, Ambassador Ali, you mentioned the startup Octavia Carbon piloting direct air capture project in Kenya, and that's a great example of using Kenya as a test bed for innovative climate technologies. Another very global trend for which Kenya is very relevant. We've seen companies like Microsoft investing $1 billion in a geothermal powered data center. So that might also bring some new customers able to not only take advantage of the energy potential of Kenya, but also finance the energy production itself. So, what can founders and investors coming to Kenya expect in terms of infrastructure or policy support or access to renewable energy? And what areas of innovation would you most like to see come next?
Well, as I said earlier, what makes us, Kenya, so attractive is our integrated range and potential, our existing green grid, our massive untapped renewable potential with a lot of baseload potential and heat generation, our suitable geology for carbon storage, and our young entrepreneurial population all give businesses a chance to kickstart development. And our policy focus on climate positive growth, which we adopted at the first Africa Climate Summit, means we approach all of this as an economic opportunity, one that needs to be invited, requires collaboration, and demands flexibility and innovation, which we are determined to offer.
So, earlier in our conversation, you also mentioned the challenge of getting the climate finance. And President Ruto has been quite outspoken about global climate justice, saying Africa is paying for a crime others committed with carbon emissions and changing climate. And accused wealthier nations of breaking a climate blood pact by failing to deliver on promised funding as well. From your perspective, how can Kenya and other African nations unlock fairer, faster, and more affordable climate finance without falling into debt traps? And do you see progress in reforming global institutions or mobilizing private capital for green infrastructure?
We are going to COP30 in a few days from now in Belém, and a number of our countries, including particularly people from the finance sector, are just coming back from the meetings in Washington discussing these issues of finance overall and climate finance also included. Just as in the energy conversation, we must continue taking both and approach. The loss and damage that is suffered by all of us, and I've just been sympathizing with the people in the Caribbean who are currently experiencing one of the worst hurricanes, Jamaica, Cuba, and others. And we also all suffer from these severe impacts of climate. And so the loss and damages suffered by climate vulnerable populations, many of whom contributed least to this crisis, is profoundly unjust, and and as it's rapidly increasing, we need to, of course, adapt. And the bill of adaptation for countries like Kenya is always increasing. Such inequity cannot sustain long-term global stability or genuine collaboration. And we must and will continue to press firmly for fair and equitable climate and development finance as an essential pathway to solution and to development. At the same time, I must add, we are neither naive nor unrealistic. The pool of grant-based capital has never been sufficient to meet global needs, and it is shrinking rapidly. And we've seen a number of developed countries are cutting their ODA. Each type of capital comes with its own expectations, and unless those expectations are met, funding will not flow. To attract private investment, the available instruments must deliver on risk adjusted returns. Fortunately, we possess not only inherent climate competitiveness, but also a growing local and global toolkit for de risking investments. Concessional and grant funds can be channeled into guarantees, insurance mechanisms, or first loss structures, while a rising body of African institutional capital, notably our pension funds, can provide localized de-risking capacities. And we are discussing with a number of them. Collectively, we have enough data and experience to make far more nuanced assessments of African risks, avoiding the outdated practices of painting the entire continent with one brush and imposing excessive risk premiums on the unknown. Africa is already taking its own challenge through the creation of, for example, the African Credit Rating Agency, enabling more accurate and context-specific credit evaluations instead of relying distant evaluators who hardly come to Africa. These are tangible examples of financial reform progressing even amid growing resistance to multilateralism and coordinated global action. Yet much more remains to be done. Let's be honest. There are countless innovative ideas emerging from the financial sectors, particularly around sustainable and climate aligned debt instruments. Kenya was proud to be the founding country of the independent expert review of debt, nature, and climate, and we co-chaired that process, which eventually identified many such opportunities. What is now most urgently required is political will for implementing the recommendations of such independent groups. In financial reforms, as in global market access, the absence of that will continue to constrain Africa's capacity for climate positive growth. Our broader vision also prioritizes mobility, e-mobility, universal access to clean cooking, universal health coverage, and so forth. And many opportunities are already viable and actively attracting investments. However, far greater and faster scale will only come with stronger global political resolve to open markets and mobilize finance, not by throwing vast sums of grant funding or subsidies are the problem, but by creating the right incentives, transparent metrics, and innovative blended finance tools to overcome investment hurdles, unlocking capital, and accelerating transformative impacts. And there are positive things that are already taking place, and we continue to push this agenda at the global level, and we will continue to push that also in the upcoming Belém conference. And we invite you all, to support the fairness and the equity that Africa and the global South countries are pushing.
Thanks, Ambassador Ali. What you describe about the necessity to reduce the risk and actually makes me connect what Kenya, to some of our other speakers at this event who are maturing startups that are trying to be like evolve from a risk capital to more like project finance and eventually become bankable asset classes. And I see some parallel between what you say on those companies who are maturing and need to do that to unlock the largest pools of capital. In closing, finally, if you were speaking directly to the climate founders, investors, and innovators tuning in today, why should they look to Kenya? What's your message to those building the next generation of climate technologies about what's possible when they partner with Kenya and Africa?
I will tell them Africa, Kenya is open and ready for investment. If you're a climate founder, if you're an investor or an innovator, you typically need three elements to achieve the best return on your investment: abundant renewable energy, skilled human capital, and the right physical environment, whether that means available land, favorable geology, or access to critical minerals. Africa in general and Kenya in particular possesses all the three in abundance, affordably, sustainably, and crucially with minimal competing use. In Kenya, you will find a location where your data center, your steel plant, or direct air capture facility will not be vilified as energy hungry obstacle to the green transition, will not face decades of permit battles, and will not struggle to attract young dynamic talent in an overstretched labor market. Here, innovation is not restricted, it is welcomed, empowered, and celebrated. We look forward to sharing that future together with you. And you are most welcome to Kenya. You will find Kenya ready to receive you, and you will be amazed how your investments will prosper and grow.
Ambassador, thank you. It's great to hear your words of focus on construction rather than obstruction. And Ambassador Ali, thank you very much.
Most appreciated, and thank you very much for the opportunity.